Okay, so picture this. It's January 1st, or, maybe just one of those Mondays where the guilt has finally hit a tipping point.
Oh, yeah.
And you decide, right, this is it. I am fixing my life. You set the alarm for 4 a.m. You go for a 10-mile run in the freezing rain.
You throw out every single thing in your pantry that brings you even a tiny bit of joy.
Exactly. And then you blend up this sludge of kale, ice, and just pure moral superiority. You drink it, you hate it, and you tell yourself, this is health.
And then, 3 days later, you're on the couch with a huge pizza, feeling like a complete failure, and just wondering why you have zero willpower.
Every single time.
Okay.
It's that cycle of penance and then binge. But what really struck me about the source material we're diving into today, this stack on the architecture of holistic well-being, is that it identifies that exact scenario not as a failure of character, but as a failure of design.
That's the core thesis, isn't it? We've culturally mixed up health with suffering.
Yeah.
We'll have this belief that if it doesn't hurt, or if it doesn't taste like, lawn clippings, it doesn't count. But the research we're looking at argues the exact opposite, that sustainability is actually a byproduct of enjoyment.
Which sounds like a paradox.
Okay.
Or maybe just wishful thinking. But the sources are saying it's actually biology. So the goal of this deep dive is to dismantle that kale sludge model and look at this idea of the virtuous cycle. It's about building a lifestyle where one good behavior just naturally leads to the next, instead of you white-knuckling your way through some regime you absolutely hate.
Exactly. It's moving from a mindset of restriction to one of systemic design. And to do that, the source material suggests we have to start where the friction is highest. They call it the modern dilemma, but let's be honest, it's the war for our sleep.
I think everyone listening can identify with the scenario the text lays out here. I mean, it hit a little too close to home for me. You have a job, maybe you're a teacher or you work in an office, and you need to be up at 7 a.m.
Sleep is critical.
You know it is.
Yeah.
But 11 p.m. rolls around, you're exhausted, and yet, there you are, just aggressively scrolling through social media.
Just doom scrolling, watching videos of people cleaning rugs or things being crushed by hydraulic presses.
It's mesmerizing. But usually, the narrative is all about discipline. Put the phone away, just go to sleep.
Right, as if it's that easy.
But the source material frames this so differently. They give it a name: revenge, bedtime procrastination. And they argue it's a physiological reaction to a lack of agency.
And that's the key insight. If your whole day belongs to your boss or your kids, that late night time is the only time that feels like it belongs to you.
You're stealing back your own time.
You are, but at the expense of your biology. The problem isn't the desire for downtime, it's the mechanism you're using to get it.
It's the screen itself. We all know about blue light, but I think we really underestimate how powerful that signal is.
We do. When you blast your eyes with blue light at midnight, you're shutting down melatonin, which is the hormone that signals sleep. But at the same time, the scrolling, that slot machine effect of what's next, is spiking your dopamine.
So you're basically telling your body it's daytime while also getting these little reward hits.
You're creating a state of being tired but wired.
Which explains why you can feel absolutely drained but just can't close your eyes. You're fighting your own body. So the solution here isn't just go to sleep. It's about changing the medium of that me time.
Correct. They call it the analog transition. You need a buffer zone. The suggestion is to swap the digital stimulation for, analog engagement. Reading a physical book is the top recommendation.
Because a book doesn't emit blue light, and it doesn't have an algorithm feeding you dopamine hits every 15 seconds. It's a slower process.
Precisely. It lets the brain downshift. But there's another tip in there that I found fascinating about the auditory environment. They suggest using brown noise or pink noise.
Okay, I've heard of white noise, that sort of static sound. But they're very specific here. Why the difference?
It's about physics, really, and how our brains process sound. White noise has equal intensity across all frequencies, which can sound a bit harsh. Pink and brown noise, they dampen those higher frequencies. Brown noise in particular is this low rumble.
Like a distant waterfall or heavy rain.
Yeah, or the hum of an airplane cabin. And the neurological benefit is this thing called stochastic resonance. Essentially, it gives your brain just enough sensory input to keep it from, ruminating on your to-do list.
So it creates a sonic boundary. It signals that you're safe.
Exactly. So you combine the brown noise with a physical book, you're still getting your leisure time, but you're lowering cortisol instead of spiking dopamine. You're working with your biology.
Which brings us to the next pillar. We've dealt with the sleep environment. But now we have to deal with the internal environment, the chatter. The source calls this mindfulness without the mysticism.
Which is a very important distinction to make.
I think it's crucial. I'll be honest, my relationship with meditation is complicated. I've tried it. I sit down, close my eyes, and my brain immediately starts making a grocery list or replaying an argument I had 5 years ago.
And your immediate reaction is, I'm failing at this.
Yes, I'm bad at this. I can't clear my mind.
And that feeling of failure is the single biggest barrier. The source is adamant about this. The goal is not to clear the mind. That's pretty much impossible. The brain produces thoughts. It's what it does.
So the grocery list is supposed to be there.
It's allowed to be there. The definition of mindfulness they offer is meta-awareness. It's the shift from being in the thought to seeing the thought.
The text uses a traffic metaphor for this that I found really helpful.
It's a great analogy. Imagine your thoughts are cars on a highway. Usually when we're stressed, we're in the traffic, we're driving the I'm angry at my boss car.
Honking at the I need to buy milk truck.
Right, you're swept up in it. Mindfulness is just the act of pulling over and sitting on the grass by the side of the road.
You still see the cars, you see anxiety drive by, you see hunger drive by, but you're not gripping the steering wheel.
Exactly, you just noted, oh, there's a worrying thought, and you let it pass. The actual exercise, the rep, isn't the silence. It's the moment you realize you've drifted back into traffic and you gently guide yourself back to the side of the road. That moment of return is the meditation.
That completely reframes it. It goes from being a spiritual test to just cognitive training. But what's the physiological payoff?
It reduces that fight or flight response. It creates a gap between stimulus and response. So when a stressful email comes in, you've trained your brain to pause for a second. You don't immediately flood your system with cortisol.
You create a buffer.
And that buffer prevents the chronic stress that leads to burnout.
So we've calibrated sleep, we've calmed the mind, now we have to address the body. And this is where the virtuous cycle really takes center stage.
This is my favorite part of the research. It starts by acknowledging the sedentary dilemma.
All right, the grading papers example, or really any desk job. You sit for 8-10 hours a day, you're mentally fried, physically stagnant. The absolute last thing you want to do is go to a gym and run on a treadmill staring at a wall.
It feels like a second job. And since you used all your willpower at your actual job, you skip the gym.
Enter the badminton principle.
Right. So the badminton principle comes from a case study about someone who hated exercise but loved playing badminton in college. The principle is simple. Find movement that's playful, but it goes deeper than just fun.
Because we're social creatures.
We are obligate social animals. The sources cite studies showing isolation is as big a health risk as smoking. But we often try to solve our problems in silos. We try to fix fitness alone, fix our mood alone.
But the virtuous cycle is when you bundle those needs together.
Exactly. When you join a badminton league or a hiking group, you're addressing the physical need for movement and the psychological need for connection at the same time.
And that changes the motivation completely.
It does. You might skip the treadmill because you're tired, but you are far less likely to skip seeing your friends. The social part becomes this positive reinforcement loop. You go for the people, and you get the fitness as a bonus.
And that's where the cycle kicks in.
That's it. Because you moved your body, you get deeper sleep. Because you slept better.
Your brain is refreshed. You have better emotional regulation the next day.
And round it goes. One good choice just feeds the next. It stops being a chore and becomes a current that pulls you along.
Okay, but there is one area where the friction feels less about willpower and more about money. Food. The source says healthy eating is economical, but I have to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
I walk into a nice grocery store and see a bag of granola for $14 or a tiny green juice for $10. It feels like I'm being lied to.
The cost myth is pervasive because the wellness industry is, well, an industry. It's selling products. The source is actually very critical of the whole superfood thing.
You mean I don't need goji berries from the Himalayas?
You emphatically do not. Superfood is largely a marketing term. The nutrient profile of a goji berry isn't that different from a blueberry, which you can buy frozen for a fraction of the price. Or cabbage. Cabbage is a superfood without a good PR team.
Cabbage needs a rebrand. So what does the economical version of this look like?
It looks like Whole Foods. The blue zones, where people live the longest, their diets are based on what you might call peasant foods. Lentils, beans, oats, seasonal vegetables, these are the cheapest things in the supermarket.
But the cost there isn't money, it's time. It takes time to soak beans, to chop vegetables.
It does, and the source acknowledges that. But this links back to mindfulness. They suggest reframing meal prep not as a chore, but as part of that analog transition. Chopping vegetables is a rhythmic, screen-free activity. It can be your decompression.
I can see that. But there's another layer here I found really interesting, which is the idea of satiety and mindful eating.
Yes, this is fascinating biology. We often eat while distracted, right? Scrolling on our phones, watching TV. The source calls this mindless eating. The problem is, the satiety signal, the message from your stomach to your brain saying, I'm full, is delayed. It takes about 20 minutes.
So if you inhale a sandwich in 3 minutes while reading emails, you've missed the call.
You've completely missed the call. You overeat because your brain hasn't registered it yet, and it goes deeper. Digestion actually starts in the brain. The smell of food, the act of chewing, these trigger enzyme release.
If you're not paying attention, you're literally not digesting as well.
Correct. If you're stressed and distracted, your body diverts blood away from your gut. Mindful eating, slowing down, actually tasting the food, isn't just some nice idea. It puts your body into a rest and digest state, which improves nutrient absorption and ensures you actually feel satisfied with less food.
So again, it's not about restriction, it's actually experience the food.
Exactly. It turns eating back into nourishment.
It really is all connected, isn't it? The sleep affects the mood affects the food affects the energy. But it's easy to get overwhelmed. We've all been there. You start a new routine, and then life happens. You get sick, work explodes, and you fall off the wagon.
And this is the final and maybe the most important section, the long game.
The sustainability piece.
The source talks about something called the abstinence violation effect. It's that moment you eat one cookie, break your diet, and then think, well, I've ruined it now. Might as well eat the whole box.
The what the hell effect. I know it well.
It's binary thinking. You're either on the wagon or off. The blueprint argues for a dial approach, not a switch. If you're operating at 80% and you drop to 10% for a week, you don't smash the dial. You just turn it back up when you can.
They mention self-compassion here, which some people might dismiss as being soft, but they say it's actually a performance enhancer.
It is. People who beat themselves up after a lapse are statistically more likely to quit entirely because shame increases cortisol, and cortisol drives comfort seeking. So shame literally drives you back to the behavior you're trying to avoid.
It's another vicious cycle. You feel bad, so you do the bad thing, which makes you feel worse.
Whereas self-compassion, saying, okay, that was a stressful day, I ate a pizza, I'm human, it breaks the loop. It lets you get back to your routine faster.
There's that great phrase they quote, a little of what you fancy does you good.
It's the 80-20 rule. If 80% of your life is whole foods and good sleep and social movement, the other 20% can be cake and doom scrolling. Your body can handle it. It doesn't need perfection. It needs consistency.
So let's try to wrap this up for everyone. We're dismantling the kale sludge model of health.
We are, and we're replacing it with a blueprint designed for human biology, not for robots.
Step 1, respect your sleep physiology. It's not about discipline, it's about light and transition. Swap the screen for a book, maybe some brown noise.
Step 2, mindfulness is just traffic observation. Don't try to stop the thoughts, just step out of the car. Use it to widen that gap between stimulus and response.
Step 3, the virtuous cycle of movement. Stop exercising alone if you hate it. Bundle your physical needs with your social needs. Find your badminton principle.
And step 4, nourish, don't restrict. Eat simple whole foods. Slow down and let your biology actually catch up.
And finally, play the long game. When you slip up, be kind to yourself so you can keep going.
It's a shift from health as a project to health as a practice, something you can actually sustain for decades, not just a few weeks.
Now, before we let you go, we want to leave you with a final thought. We talked a lot about the virtuous cycle, finding where two needs support each other.
The provocative thought for this week is this. Look at your schedule. Find one area where your needs are currently in conflict. Maybe it's productivity versus rest, or saving money versus eating well.
And ask yourself, is there a badminton principle for that conflict? Is there a way to bundle those needs? Can you meal prep with a friend so it becomes social time? Can you take that conference call while you're on a walk?
Find that loop where the healthy choice becomes the easier choice. Because once you stop swimming upstream, you'd be amazed how far you can go.
And that's a deep dive worth taking. Thanks for listening.
Take care, everyone.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, I want to start with a concept that feels almost inescapable if you live in the modern world. I want you to think for a second about the overhead of your life.
Right.
And I don't mean the financial overhead, not the rent, the mortgage, the car payments. I mean the biological overhead.
The physiological tax. That's a good way to put it. The cost of living, but for your body.
Exactly. The hidden tax of simply existing in this high stimulation, urbanized, always-on environment we've all built for ourselves.
Yeah.
We tend to think of health as this, this checklist of things we do. Did I go to the gym? Did I eat the salad? Did I get my steps in?
The active inputs.
Right. But we rarely stop to consider the environment that we are doing those things in and how that environment is silently extracting a cost from us every single hour of the day.
It's the difference between trying to swim upstream versus swimming with the current. I mean, you can have the perfect stroke, the perfect diet, the perfect mindset, but if the current of your environment is fundamentally working against you, you are going to exhaust yourself just trying to stay in place.
You're just treading water, burning energy to go nowhere.
Precisely.
And that is the absolute core theme of the source material we are unpacking today. We're looking at a really fascinating dialogue from the Advanced Learner Studio. Specifically, it's part 2 of their series on the psychology of habits and environment. And it centers on this conversation between two people, Emma and John, and they're dissecting this exact issue, what they call the ecology of the self.
And it is so important to note that this is part 2. Part 1, which, we aren't covering today, apparently dealt with the basics, the really foundational stuff like sleep and diet.
Killers.
The pillars, yes. But what makes part 2 so compelling, I think, is that it moves beyond those basics into the much more subtle stuff, the invisible adjustments, the mental boundaries, the environmental triggers that we don't even realize are shaping our behavior.
It's the software update to the hardware of diet and exercise.
That is a great way to put it. It really is. We are looking at how to optimize the operating system, not just the machine itself.
So what's our mission statement for this deep dive then? If you, the listener, take one thing away from our conversation today, what should it be?
I think the goal is to shift the perspective from health as a chore to health as an ecosystem. That's the key.
I like that. Health is an ecosystem.
Yeah. We want to explore how the external world, the light, the green space, the city sounds, shapes your internal state. And then how your internal mental architecture, your boundaries, your focus, your attention, how that in turn shapes your reality.
It's a two-way street.
It's a feedback loop. And along the way, we are going to look at why you might be suffering from a condition you didn't even know existed, why your water bottle is actually a piece of high-tech psychological equipment, and why saying no might just be the most productive thing you can do all day.
Okay, I'm in. Health as an ecosystem. So let's lay out the roadmap for everyone. We are going to start with the external environment. Specifically, this concept that you just mentioned, nature deficit disorder.
Which sounds dramatic, I know, but stick with us. It's a really useful idea.
Then we are going to move from the outside world, inside the body. We're going to talk about biofeedback, but not the high-tech kind with, wires and sensors and apps. We're talking about a really low-tech visual check that tells you if your brain is actually functioning at full capacity or just sputtering along.
The hydration equation.
Yeah.
More important than you think.
Then we pivot to the mind. We'll break down the psychology of boundaries, that feeling John talks about, the guilt of no, and then we'll get into why gratitude is actually a neurological tool, not just some, greeting card sentiment.
Right. It's not about toxic positivity. It's about brain training.
And finally, we'll wrap it all up by talking about the virtuous cycle, how all these pieces fit together, and the very unglamorous reality of preventative maintenance.
It's a full stack review of the human system from the outside in.
Let's jump in. Section 1, the external environment. The source material kicks off with this term, and it's a big one, nature deficit disorder. Now, I hear that, and I immediately think, okay, is this a real thing? Is this in the medical books?
And that's the first thing Emma, in the source text, is very careful to clarify. Right out of the gate, she says, look, nature deficit disorder is not a medically recognized diagnosis.
Okay, so you can't get a prescription for it.
Exactly. You can't walk into a doctor's office, get a blood test, and walk out with a diagnosis of nature deficit disorder that your insurance is going to cover. It's not in the DSM-5. It's not a clinical term.
So it's more of a descriptive term then, a framework.
Precisely. But just because it isn't a clinical diagnosis doesn't mean it isn't describing a very, very real phenomenon. The source uses it as a framework for describing the human cost of alienation from nature.
Alienation. That's a strong word.
It is, and I think that word alienation is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. It's not just that we don't see nature enough. It implies we are estranged from something we fundamentally belong to.
As in biologically, evolutionarily, we're built for a different world than the one we live in.
We are. I mean, think about it. For 99.9% of human history, our baseline environment was forests, savannas, rivers, oceans. The concrete jungle, the digital world. This is a brand new experiment, biologically speaking. We've only been doing this for a handful of generations.
A blink of an eye.
A total blink. And the source suggests that when we are cut off from that natural baseline, there are specific, tangible consequences. It's not just a vague feeling of, oh, I wish I was camping.
No, the source lists actual symptoms, physical, measurable stuff.
Two major ones, yeah. The first one is a loss of attention span.
I think everyone listening just nodded their head.
Right. I mean, think about the cognitive load of a typical city street. You have flashing lights, sirens, text notifications buzzing in your pocket, traffic, thousands of advertisements screaming for your attention. Your brain is constantly filtering threats and processing information. It never, ever rests.
It's a state of constant hypervigilance.
Exactly. Whereas nature provides what some psychologists call soft fascination.
Soft fascination. I like that. What does it mean?
It means your attention is engaged, but not in a demanding way. Think about the movement of leaves in the wind, the sound of a stream, clouds drifting by. It captures your attention effortlessly. It doesn't require directed focus. And this allows the attention circuits in your prefrontal cortex to rest and recharge.
Whereas scrolling on your phone, which we think of as relaxing, that's not soft fascination.
Not at all. That's hard, directed attention. You're processing information, making micro-decisions, reacting to stimuli. It's cognitively exhausting. It's the opposite of restorative.
Wow. Okay, so that's the first symptom, attention span. What's the second?
The second one mentioned is even more physical, elevated blood pressure.
So there's a direct link between the view out your window and your actual cardiovascular health.
That's what the source implies, yes. Our bodies seem to interpret urban density as a low-level chronic stress state. We are constantly braced for impact on some primal level. When you remove that stimulus, when you place yourself in a natural environment, the pressure literally drops. The whole system exhales.
It's like taking the engine out of overdrive and letting it idle.
That's a perfect analogy.
Right.
You're allowing the system to return to its baseline, which is a state of calm, not a state of alert.
So, if the problem is this alienation from nature, the prescription is obviously get back into it.
Right.
But the source gets specific here. It's not just go outside. That's too simple.
Right. It introduces the concept of green spaces. And John, the other character in our dialogue, brings up a practice that has gained a lot of traction recently, forest bathing.
Now, I have to admit, the first time I heard the term forest bathing, I pictured a clawfoot tub in the middle of a clearing with, like, pine-scented bath bombs.
You and me both. I had a similar image. But no, soap is not required. It's a direct translation of the Japanese term shinrin-yoku.
Shinrin-yoku.
And the distinction the source makes here is absolutely vital. Forest bathing is about immersion. It's about simply being in the presence of the forest atmosphere. It's a sensory experience, smelling the earth, hearing the birds, feeling the breeze.
And this is where the cultural clash happens, right?
Yeah.
Because in the West, if we are going to the woods, we usually have a goal. We are going to hike the trail. We are going to reach the summit. We're going to burn 600 calories. We're going to get our heart rate into zone 3.
We gamify nature. We turn it into another productivity metric. We treat the forest like an outdoor gym rather than a sanctuary or a cathedral.
And the source argues that this completely defeats the purpose of the recharge. If you are stressing your body and mind to conquer the mountain, you aren't getting that soft fascination we were talking about.
You're just moving the stress outside. You're swapping the stress of your inbox for the stress of your lactate threshold.
Which leads us to what I think is the most relatable and frankly painful anecdote in the entire text, the story of John's hiking disaster.
Oh, poor John. We have all been John at some point.
We have. So John decides he is going to fix his nature deficit disorder. He's going to get his green time. He's all in. But he doesn't just, go for a walk in the local park.
No, that'd be too simple. John falls deep into what you might call the novice trap. He equates doing it right with buying all the gear.
Ah, yes, the gear acquisition phase.
So he goes out and buys brand new, heavy-duty, expensive hiking boots.
The kind that are stiff as a board, unforgiving leather. The kind you probably need if you're, crossing a glacier in the Himalayas.
Exactly. And he decides that for his first excursion in these new boots, He's not going to walk a gentle path. He's going to conquer a mountain. He wants to optimize the experience. If nature is good, more nature and harder nature must be better.
Oh no, I can feel the blisters forming just talking about it. My heels are aching in sympathy.
And that is exactly what happened. It was a complete catastrophe. He tells Emma he ended up with blisters the size of grapes.
The size of grapes. That is such a specific and visceral image. It makes you wince.
And the aftermath was just as bad. He literally couldn't walk properly for 3 days.
So let's just pause and look at the net result of his attempt to get healthy. He immobilized himself. He caused himself acute pain. He likely spiked his cortisol levels from the stress of the injury and the frustration. He is objectively worse off than if he had just stayed on the couch.
And this is the most important part, he created a powerful negative association with the very habit he was trying to build. Now, when he thinks of nature, his brain connects it to pain and failure.
That's the quickest way to kill a new habit.
It's habit sabotage. The brain is an avoidance machine. If green space equals grape-sized blisters, the brain says, you know what? Let's just stay inside and watch Netflix. It's safer there.
So what is the lesson Emma draws from this? Because it's not just don't buy bad boots. It's deeper than that.
The lesson is incremental progress. It's the core philosophy of the whole text, really.
Yeah.
We have this tendency, especially when we are motivated and trying to change our lives, to go from 0 to 100. We want the transformation now.
The New Year's resolution effect.
Exactly. But enthusiasm so often leads to overexertion, which leads to injury or burnout.
We try to break in the boots and the body and the habit all at the same time.
And the whole system just breaks. The source emphasizes that you have to break things in gradually. Think about it. If John had just worn his old comfortable sneakers and walked for 20 minutes on a flat, wooded trail,
He would have come home feeling refreshed, clear-headed.
and he would have built a positive association. He would have wanted to go back the next day, maybe for 25 minutes.
Consistency beats intensity.
Every single time when it comes to habit formation, and this applies to everything we're going to talk about today, you don't fix your ecosystem by detonating a bomb in it. You fix it by gardening, little bit by little bit.
You fix it by gardening. I like that a lot. Now, before we leave the external environment, there is one more crucial element the source touches on. We've talked about the green, but we also need to talk about the light.
Yes, this is where the biology gets really, really interesting. The source connects being outdoors to our internal regulation system via sunlight and vitamin D.
It brings up SAD, seasonal affective disorder.
Right, which many listeners, especially those in colder climates, might be intimately familiar with. It's that predictable dip in mood and energy that hits like clockwork during the winter months.
Winter blues.
And the source explicitly links this to a lack of light exposure. It's not just a psychological reaction to gloomy weather, oh, it's gray, so I feel gray. It's a chemical reaction.
Or lack of a chemical reaction, I guess.
A lack of one, precisely. And John makes a callback here in the dialogue to circadian rhythms, which they must have discussed in part 1. This is crucial. We are fundamentally rhythmic creatures. Our hormones, melatonin for sleep, cortisol for waking, serotonin for mood, they all operate on a 24-hour clock.
And that clock is set by light.
Light is the primary input. It's the master signal that tells our body what time it is and what it should be doing.
So when we sit inside under artificial fluorescent lights all day and then stare at blue light emitting screens all night, we are essentially confusing the hell out of our internal clock.
We are living in a state of permanent biological jet lag.
That is a terrifying phrase.
Yes.
Permanent biological jet lag.
But think about it. It explains so much, doesn't it? The chronic fatigue, the insomnia, the mood swings. You know that feeling when you get off a long-haul flight in a new time zone and your body just feels wrong? Your digestion is off, your brain is foggy, your sleep is completely wrecked.
It's a horrible feeling.
That is how many people live every single day of their lives because their bodies aren't getting the clear environmental signal of this is morning, time to wake up, and this is night, time to wind down.
So getting into nature isn't just about the pretty scenery and the fresh air. It's about exposing your photoreceptors in your eyes to natural full-spectrum light to signal to your body. It is daytime. Be awake. Produce serotonin. Be happy.
Exactly. And here's a key point. Even on a cloudy, overcast day, the lux, which is the measure of the intensity of light outside, is vastly, exponentially higher than it is inside a typical office building.
Really, even on a gray day.
Oh, by orders of magnitude. Your eyes need that intensity to trigger the full hormonal cascade that wakes you up properly. A cup of coffee is a temporary patch. Sunlight is the actual operating signal.
So the external environment acts as a regulator. It's the conductor of our internal biological orchestra.
Correct. And without the conductor, the instruments, your organs, your hormones, your neurotransmitters, they all start playing out of sync, and the result is chaos.
Okay, that's a powerful foundation. Let's move from the outside world to the inside. Section 2, the internal environment. And we are going to get a little personal here.
We are.
We are talking about hydration, which sounds basic, but Emma introduces a very specific way to measure it. She calls it crude but effective.
The visual check.
The color of your urine.
Look, it is the original biofeedback. It's the OG wearable.
It really is. It's wild when you think about it. We spend hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars on smartwatches and rings and patches to tell us how our body is doing.
We obsess over sleep scores and heart rate variability.
And Emma points out that we have this free, built-in, real-time dashboard that we actively ignore several times a day.
Biofeedback is just a loop where you get data about your body in real time so you can make an adjustment. And the rule Emma lays out is the simplest algorithm in the world. Dark equals dehydrated. Clear or pale yellow equals hydrated. That's it.
So why is this such a major focus in the source? I mean, I feel like drink more water is advice we've all heard a million times. It's the eat your vegetables of the beverage world.
It is, but it's one of those things we hear so often we stop listening to it. And the reason it's a focus is because, as Emma claims, a huge number of people are operating in a state of chronic low-level dehydration.
Okay, so what does that mean? It's not that they are like collapsing of thirst in the desert.
No, not at all. It's much more insidious than that. It's that they are constantly running at 90% capacity, then 80%, then maybe 70%. It's a slow, invisible drain on performance.
And what does that actually look like in daily life? What are the symptoms of running at, say, 80%?
The big one is brain fog.
The 3.0 euro PM slump.
That's the one. That feeling where you just stare at the screen and the cursor is blinking and your brain feels like it's full of cotton wool. You have nothing.
I know that feeling well.
Also fatigue, general sluggishness, a lack of mental sharpness. And here is the danger point the source highlights. We are terrible at interpreting that signal from our body.
We don't think, oh, my brain, which is about 75% water, is shrinking slightly from lack of fluid impairing cognitive function.
No, we think, I'm tired, I need coffee. Or we think, I'm hungry, I need a sugary snack. Or I'm just lazy today.
We misdiagnose the symptom completely.
And we do. We throw calories or caffeine at a problem that just requires H2O. And this leads us directly to the caffeine trap that John, our relatable everyman, falls right into.
John asks the question I think we have all secretly hoped the answer is yes to for our entire lives. He asks, does the liquid in my coffee count towards my hydration?
It's liquid, it's wet, it's mostly water. Surely it hydrates. Please let it be true.
But Emma just shuts him down, cold.
She introduces the term diuretic.
Okay, break that down for us. What is a diuretic exactly?
A diuretic is any substance that promotes diuresis, which is the increased production of urine. Essentially, it signals your kidneys to flush more water out of your system than they otherwise would.
So the caffeine in the coffee is actively telling your body to get rid of water.
Correct. So while you are taking in, say, 8 ounces of liquid in a cup of coffee, the caffeine is simultaneously triggering a process that removes water.
So it's a zero-sum game at best.
Or a negative-sum game, depending on the strength of the coffee and your personal tolerance. You are borrowing energy from the caffeine, but you are paying a significant tax in hydration. You cannot espresso your way to being hydrated.
That is a hard truth for a lot of people. I think so many listeners probably use coffee as their primary, if not only fluid intake, until maybe lunch or dinner time.
And if you do that, the afternoon crash is almost inevitable. You ride that caffeine high for a few hours, but underneath, the dehydration is building up, your cells are getting parched. When the caffeine wears off, you don't just return to your baseline, you crash far below it because your system is depleted.
But John brings up a very valid counterpoint, which I think is the real barrier for many people. He says water is monotonous.
It's boring. It has no flavor.
It's the blank page of beverages. There's no excitement there.
I love that description. And he's absolutely right. Compared to the hyper-palatable, sugar-filled, chemically engineered drinks we are constantly marketed, plain water is a sensory void. And human beings are, at our core, dopamine-seeking missiles. If it doesn't taste good, if there's no reward signal, we will naturally resist it.
So how do we fix that? Because willpower is a finite resource. You can't just force yourself to drink something you find boring forever. That's not a sustainable habit.
No, you'll fail. You have to lower the friction. And this is where Emma's advice gets really practical. She suggests flavor hacking.
This sounds fancy and complicated, but it's actually really simple stuff.
It's incredibly simple. She's talking about infusing water, putting slices of cucumber in it, a wedge of lemon, some crushed berries, a sprig of mint.
It seems so trivial. Does it really make a difference?
It can make all the difference because what you are doing is you're changing the reward profile of the drink. You are making it palatable. You are turning it from a chore into a mild treat.
You're tricking your dopamine-seeking brain into enjoying the maintenance.
Exactly. Palatability is a huge driver of human behavior. If you make the water just slightly more interesting, you remove that big psychological barrier of boring. You might actually find yourself looking forward to it.
She also couples that with a powerful environmental trigger, the reusable water bottle.
Which is sitting right here on the table between us as we speak. It works.
It is a visual cue. It's behavior change 101. If the bottle is in your line of sight, you will sip from it. If it is hidden away in the kitchen cabinet, you won't. You are consciously engineering your immediate environment to support the habit you want to build.
It works on the simple principle of availability. If the water is within arm's reach, you will sip it unconsciously throughout the day. If you have to make a conscious decision to get up, walk to the kitchen, find a clean glass, and fill it, you will only do it when you are desperately thirsty. The bottle just bridges that gap.
It's fascinating how much of this ecology of the self comes down to these simple principles. Removing friction for good things and adding friction for bad things.
That is the absolute essence of environmental design for habits and for life. You want the good choice, the healthy choice, to be the path of least resistance.
So we've covered the external environment, the green space and the light. We've covered the internal environment, the fluids and the low-tech biofeedback. Now let's move upstairs. Let's talk about the mental architecture.
Yes. This is where the deep dive gets really psychological. We are moving from the hardware, the body, to the software, the mind.
Section 3. Boundaries. The source material pivots here from what we put in to how we protect what we have. And John voices a feeling that I think is almost universal. He talks about the guilt. The guilt of no.
This is perhaps one of the most pervasive issues in modern work and social culture. John describes feeling intensely guilty when he refuses to take on extra work or when he says no to a social gathering because he's just plain tired.
He feels like he is letting people down. He feels like he should be able to do it all, to be everything to everyone.
And that word should is such a dangerous word. We've been conditioned to equate saying yes with being a team player, a good friend, a hard worker. So conversely, saying no feels like a moral failure. It feels selfish.
There's this deep-seated belief that our availability equals our value. If I am always available to help, I am valuable. If I am unavailable, I am useless or selfish.
Exactly. It's a toxic equation. But this is where Emma flips the script on him. She uses a powerful psychological technique called reframing.
Reframing is such a core tool in therapy and coaching. Can you break that down for us in this specific context?
Sure. Reframing is essentially cognitive restructuring. It's taking the exact same set of facts, but choosing to look at them through a different lens, a different frame, in order to change the emotional meaning and your subsequent reaction.
So you're not changing the situation, you're changing how you see it.
Precisely. And in this case, Emma argues that we need to reframe the very concept of selfishness.
How does she redefine it? What's the new frame?
She argues that saying no is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-preservation.
That's a huge shift. From a moral failing to a survival instinct?
It is. And it is based on what the source calls the energy theory. You have to start viewing your energy, your mental, your emotional, and your physical capacity as a finite resource.
We don't, though. We tend to treat energy like it's magic, like it's infinite. We think if we just push harder, drink more coffee, we can generate more of it on demand.
But it's not magic. It's physics. It's biology. It's a battery. And if you keep drawing power from a battery without ever stopping to recharge it, what happens?
It dies.
It dies. And that's what burnout is. Burnout isn't a badge of honor. It's a total system failure. It means you ran the machine until it broke down completely. Think about your smartphone. When it hits 10% battery, it automatically goes into low power mode. It stops fetching emails in the background. It dims the screen. It throttles the processor. It creates boundaries to survive.
Humans need a low power mode.
We do. And saying no is how you activate it. When you say no to that extra project you don't have time for, you aren't being lazy. You are protecting the asset. You're protecting the battery.
You are protecting your capacity to function. That's a phrase from the source.
It's a great phrase. And think about it this way. If you say yes to everything, you dilute your finite energy across so many things that you end up doing all of them poorly. You become known for being unreliable because you're constantly exhausted and stretched too thin.
That's a crazy paradox, isn't it? By trying to please everyone and be the ultimate yes man, you end up serving no one well, including yourself.
Exactly. But if you strategically say no to the things that drain you or aren't a priority, you preserve and concentrate that energy for the things that truly matter. When you do say yes, you show up fully. You are vibrant. You are capable. You do your best work.
So boundaries are actually a quality control mechanism for your output.
That is a brilliant way to put it. I'm going to steal that. Boundaries ensure that what you deliver is high quality because you actually have the resources in the tank to produce it.
But let's be real. Setting boundaries is terrifying. In the moment, that guilt that John talks about is very, very real. So how does the source suggest we deal with that immediate visceral feeling of, I'm being a jerk right now?
Emma suggests focusing on the hidden trade-off. Every time you say yes to something you don't have the capacity for, you are implicitly saying no to something else. And that something else is usually major. Your sleep, your health, your family time, your own peace of mind.
So the guilt comes from only seeing the person you're disappointing in front of you.
Yes. You need to flip the camera around and see the person you are protecting, which is yourself, your future self. It's not just, no, I can't come to the party. It's, no, I can't come to the party because I am saying yes to getting 8 hours of sleep so I'm not a zombie at my kid's soccer game tomorrow.
You're making the yes explicit in your own mind.
You are. And over time, something amazing happens. People start to respect your boundaries. They learn that your yes really means something because it's not given away freely. It signals that you take your work and your well-being seriously.
But it's hard. It requires a lot of mental fortitude to look someone in the eye and say, I can't do that.
Which is why it pairs so well with the next section of the source material. If boundaries are about protecting the quantity of our energy, we also need to look at the quality of that energy.
Right. Section 4. Rewiring the brain. The source brings up gratitude.
Now, hold on. I can just hear some of the listeners rolling their eyes right now.
I know. The word gratitude has been co-opted. It's on the coffee mugs. It's the hashtag blessed on a picture of a fancy brunch. It can feel fluffy.
It can feel like denial. And the source addresses this head on by immediately contrasting healthy gratitude with toxic positivity.
This is a really crucial distinction to make. What is toxic positivity?
Toxic positivity is the blind insistence that everything is fine, and you should only have good vibes when things are clearly not fine. It is the active suppression of so-called negative emotions.
It's someone telling you to look on the bright side when your house is on fire.
Perfect example. It's incredibly invalidating. It tells you that your pain, your stress, your anger isn't real, or that you're somehow wrong for feeling it. Good vibes only is actually a very aggressive and dismissive statement if you're having a legitimately bad time.
Exactly. So Emma makes it crystal clear. Healthy gratitude is not that. It is not about ignoring problems. You're allowed to be stressed. You're allowed to be in pain. You can have a terrible, rotten day.
So what is it then in this framework? In this framework, it is a conscious effort to acknowledge what is going well alongside the bad. It's not about replacing the bad with the good. It's about making sure the good gets equal airtime. It's about accurate data collection on your life.
It's widening the aperture of your attention.
Yes. And the neuroscience behind this, which the source touches on, is fascinating. It talks about shifting and strengthening neural pathways.
This is the old what fires together wires together concept from Hebbian learning.
That's the one. The brain is an efficiency engine. It gets good at whatever it practices. And if you spend your entire day scanning your environment for threats, annoyances, and problems, which, let's be honest, is the default survival mode for many of us.
It is. It's our evolutionary heritage. We are wired to look for the tiger in the bush. Or, in modern terms, the passive-aggressive email in the inbox.
Laughs.
The inbox tiger.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you practice that all day, your brain builds a neurological superhighway for negative thoughts. You become an expert at finding misery. You will walk into a beautiful room and your eyes will immediately be drawn to the one tiny stain on the carpet.
That's sometimes called the Tetris effect, right? If you play Tetris for hours, you close your eyes and you see falling shapes everywhere.
Precisely. If you play find the problem all day at work, you see problems everywhere in your life. But gratitude is the counter practice. It is the conscious training of your reticular activating system that filter in your brain to scan for opportunities, to scan for the positive data points.
So you are literally, physically building a new highway in your brain.
You are rewiring your default search engine. And the source gives a very practical, concrete tool for this. It's not just think happy thoughts. That's too vague.
The gratitude journal.
And specifically, the act of writing it down is key.
Why? Why does the physical act of pen on paper matter so much? Can't I just think of 3 good things while I'm brushing my teeth? You can, and that's better than nothing, but the source implies that writing it down forces a different and deeper level of cognitive processing. It forces your brain to start, to actively search the day's memory banks for specific positive data points, and then to encode them into language and motor action.
Yeah.
That effort is the rep at the mental gym.
It makes the thought concrete. It's not just a fleeting feeling anymore. It becomes a piece of data, a record.
Exactly. And over time, that search process becomes automatic. Your brain gets good at it. You start noticing the sunset or the really good cup of coffee or the friendly interaction with a stranger in real time as it's happening. You don't have to hunt for it anymore at the end of the day. You have fundamentally rewired your outlook.
It's interesting because this connects all the way back to the environment theme from the beginning. In this case, you are curating your internal mental environment.
Yes.
You are deciding what furniture to put in your mind. Are you going to fill it with clutter and threats and garbage, or are you going to consciously place a few beautiful, positive things in there every single day?
That's it exactly. You are the interior decorator of your own consciousness. And a gratitude practice is just choosing to put a nice lamp and a comfortable chair in the corner instead of another pile of garbage.
So we've built this incredible structure now. We have nature fueling us from the outside. We have hydration keeping the internal engine running. We have boundaries protecting our fuel tank. And we have gratitude keeping our navigation system oriented toward the good. This brings us to the final part, Section 5, the virtuous cycle.
Or, as the source calls it, systemic integration.
That sounds very corporate and a little dry.
It does. But it's just the simple, powerful idea that these things don't happen in a vacuum. They aren't separate habits. They feed each other.
The source calls it the virtuous cycle. It's the opposite of a vicious cycle.
Right. Think about the chain reaction. Let's trace it. You wake up and, based on what we've discussed, you drink a big glass of water instead of going straight for the coffee. You are hydrated.
Okay, so your brain fog lifts a little bit. You feel a bit sharper than usual.
Because you feel sharper, you have the mental presence to notice that you are starting to get stressed by your morning emails. So instead of just grinding through, you take a 10-minute walk outside.
And on that walk, you get some natural light in your eyes. You get some soft fascination. You lower your blood pressure. You reset the system.
Because you've reset, you have the emotional capacity to handle a difficult, unexpected request from a coworker. Instead of snapping or just caving in out of exhaustion, you calmly and politely set a boundary.
And in doing so, you protect your energy for the rest of the day.
And because you protected your energy, you aren't a complete wreck at the end of the day. You have the mental bandwidth to write down 3 things you're grateful for in your journal, which helps you sleep better.
And you wake up the next morning feeling more rested, ready to do it all again, maybe even a little bit better. It loops upward.
It's an upward spiral. Now contrast that with the vicious cycle, which is so much more common.
You wake up groggy, you chug coffee, you skip the water, you're immediately dehydrated and anxious, you're too busy to go outside.
Yeah.
You say yes to every request out of guilt and a lack of energy to fight back. You crash at 3 p.m., you numb out with doom scrolling and junk food at night.
And you wake up feeling even worse than you did the day before. The whole point of this deep dive, I think, is to show you where the leverage points are to flip that switch. You don't have to change everything all at once. You just have to interrupt the vicious cycle at one single point. Maybe it's the glass of water, maybe it's the 10-minute walk, and start turning the wheel the other way.
And there's always a but. Maintaining this cycle isn't always sexy or exciting.
No, not at all. And this is where the source gets really honest. It talks about the unglamorous side of health.
This is the stuff that no wellness influencers posting on Instagram. You know, hashtag root canal, hashtag annual checkup.
Exactly. Hashtag dental cleaning. It's preventative maintenance.
And the source directly challenges that very common mentality of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Which is the standard operating procedure for so many of us, especially men, let's be honest. John admits in the source that he has been procrastinating on going to the dentist.
Classic John.
Right.
First the hiking boost disaster, now the dentist avoidance. He really is the everyman in this story.
He is, but that procrastination is so dangerous. The source lists these specific, unglamorous necessities. Regular medical checkups, dental cleanings, and it also mentions monitoring your skin for reactions to environmental toxins.
That last one is interesting, monitoring your skin.
Yeah.
We usually think of skincare as vanity, not health.
But the skin is your body's largest organ. It's the primary barrier between you and the world. It is often the first place to show signs that something is wrong in your internal or external environment. Rashes, dryness, acne, eczema, these are all early warning signals on the body's dashboard.
And the dental thing, why is that so important?
We now know that oral health is intrinsically linked to cardiovascular health and systemic inflammation. Inflammation in your gums can signal and even contribute to inflammation elsewhere in the body. But because it's not fun and because it can involve some discomfort, we put it off.
We act like the body is a magical machine that runs forever until it suddenly and catastrophically explodes. But Emma argues for the preventative maintenance model.
Just like your car. You change the oil not because the car is broken, but so it doesn't break down on the highway in the middle of nowhere.
So the lesson here is, make the appointment, do the boring stuff, clean your ecosystem's filters.
It protects the baseline. You can't reach peak performance if your foundation is crumbling because you have a hidden tooth infection you ignored for 6 months. It's a crucial, if unglamorous, part of the virtuous cycle.
It really all comes down to a sense of stewardship, doesn't it? Being a good steward of the one body you get to live in.
That's a great way to frame it.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to touch on the overarching philosophy that Emma shares at the very end of the source material. I think it perfectly sums up everything we've talked about today.
Incremental progress, not perfection.
Yes. I think this is the single most important takeaway for anyone listening, because everything we've discussed, the hydration, the boundaries, the gratitude journals, the forest bathing, it can feel incredibly overwhelming if you try to overhaul your entire life on a Monday morning.
If you try to do it all at once, you are John with the new boots on the mountain. It's inevitable. You will get blisters. You will crash and burn.
You will get burnout from trying to achieve wellness. The irony.
And health is described in the source not as a destination, but as a journey of experimenting. It isn't a rigid set of rules that you either pass or fail. It is about finding what makes you, the individual listener, feel vibrant and capable.
So maybe for you, forest bathing is too slow and meditative. Maybe you need a brisk walk with a podcast to clear your head. Maybe you hate cucumber water, but you discover you love water with a little bit of lime and mint.
Exactly. It's about customization and self-discovery. But the direction of travel should always be toward that incremental 1% improvement. 1% better today than you were yesterday.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? We've traveled a long way in this conversation, from the forest to the cells to the deep structures of the mind and back to the dentist's chair.
We've seen that you cannot separate yourself from your environment. You are not a brain in a jar. You are a complex, sensitive organism living within an ecosystem.
And the empowering part of all this is that you have more control over that ecology than you might think. You can control the fluids that go in. You can control the boundaries you set. You can control where you point the spotlight of your attention.
You are the architect of your personal ecosystem.
So here is my final provocation for you. I want you to think about that one unglamorous appointment. You know, the one that popped into your head 5 minutes ago when we were talking about it, and you immediately pushed it away. The one you've been putting off for 6 months or maybe a year.
Or consider the one boundary you know you need to set this week. Who or what is asking for energy that you simply do not have to give right now?
If your energy is truly a finite resource, where are you currently leaking it? Is it a leak in your hydration, a leak in your boundaries, a leak in your attention that you're giving away to things that don't matter?
Find the leak. Just one. And then, taking a small incremental step, don't buy the brand new boots yet. Just find a way to patch it.
I think I'm going to go check the color of my hydration right now.
A wise choice. And I think I'll go break in my walking shoes just around the block.
Slowly.
Very, very slowly.
Thanks for diving deep with us. Go take care of your ecosystem.
Go.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is great to have you with us.
Good to be here.
Today, we are opening up a stack of sources that I have to admit felt a little bit like a personal intervention when I first read through them.
Flops. I know what you mean.
I mean, Usually when we pick a topic, I feel like, an objective observer.
Yeah.
But this time, I felt seen and not necessarily in a good way.
A little too close to home.
A little too close, yeah. We are taking a comprehensive look at the concept of holistic wellness.
It's a term that gets thrown around a lot, doesn't it? It's almost become this buzzword that people just tune out.
It really does. And usually when I hear holistic wellness, I instinctively reach for my wallet because I assume someone is about to sell me a crystal or a subscription to a juice cleanse.
Some kind of vibrating energy mat.
Exactly, some energy mat. But the sources we have today, and specifically this really insightful transcript from the Advanced Learner Studio, they're completely different. This isn't about buying things. It's essentially about, systemic design for the human body.
Exactly. That is the distinction, isn't it? We aren't looking at the eat your veggies level of advice here. That's been said.
Right.
We are pulling from a discussion that covers environment, nutrition, sleep hygiene, but it approaches these topics through the lens of behavioral psychology and physiology. It's so much more rigorous than your standard lifestyle blog.
Well, the Advanced Learner Studio material really emphasizes moving past the basics. We aren't talking about calories in versus calories out. That is like Health 101.
That's entry level, yeah.
We are looking at what they call advanced biohacks, but without the sci-fi connotation that word has. It's really about the psychological tricks necessary to actually live a healthy life in a modern world that is, quite frankly, designed to make us sick.
That is a strong way to put it, but it's accurate. The source material frames the conversation around all these, invisible factors, the environmental cues that sabotage our health before we even realize we've made a choice. It's not about willpower. It's about the stage we are acting on.
And that is our mission today. We want to uncover those specific insights that explain why we fail at health, even when we think we're trying. So let me pose a dilemma that comes right out of the source material, something I think is going to resonate with almost everyone listening.
I'm ready.
Why is it that you can go to the gym, put in a solid hour of lifting or running, you sweat it out, you feel like a champion, and yet by 4:00 p.m., you still feel sluggish, unhealthy, or just physically off?
It's the paradox of the active couch potato. I love that term.
The active couch potato.
You are doing the right thing for 1 hour, but the other 15 waking hours are actively working against you.
Or here's another one, and this one is me, 100%. Why do we find ourselves eating when we aren't even hungry? You just finished lunch, you are physiologically full, but your hand is just automatically reaching into the chip bag. Why does that happen?
It is the universal human experience in the modern corporate world, I think. And the core philosophy we found in these sources, it explains that disconnect perfectly. The big idea is that health isn't a destination you arrive at. It isn't a trophy you win after a workout. It is a series of micro decisions. But more specifically, it is about curating your environment.
Curating. I love that word in this context. It's not controlling or forcing. It's curating.
Yes. If you are relying solely on willpower to be healthy, you are going to lose. The human brain is just not designed to have infinite willpower.
It's a finite resource.
It fatigues just like a muscle. But if you design your environment, your desk, your kitchen, your bedroom to work for you, the health comes naturally. You essentially rig the game in your favor.
I love that concept. It just sounds so much more sophisticated than just dieting. It's like being the architect of your own behaviors.
It is.
So here is our roadmap for this deep dive. We're breaking this down into 4 main pillars we found in our source stack. First, we are going to look at the danger of the sedentary lifestyle, and we're going to dismantle the gym myth, which I think is going to upset some people, but it really needs to be said.
Oh, that is a controversial one, but it's so necessary.
Second, we're going to unpack the psychology behind boredom snacking and how to, hack your own brain to stop it. Then we will pivot to nutrition. Specifically, the truth about so-called superfoods and the safety or lack thereof regarding supplements. And finally, we're going to end with some advanced sleep hygiene tips that involve colored noise and something called proprioception. It gets a little weird, but it's fascinating.
It's a full spectrum, isn't it? From the moment you sit down at your desk to the moment you close your eyes.
It really is.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. Let's unpack this first pillar, the chair. The source material uses a very specific and somewhat ominous term to describe it.
Yeah.
The modern scourge.
Yeah.
They're talking about the sedentary lifestyle.
Scourge is a heavy word. You usually reserve it for plagues or pestilence.
Right, like the bubonic plague.
Exactly. But in terms of public health impact, it fits. The source introduces us to this character, John, who's a teacher, and he describes himself as being glued to his chair for hours, grading papers. It just paints this picture of him stuck there, immobile. And while the source uses a teacher as the example, I mean, this applies to the coder, the accountant, the truck driver, the writer, really anyone in the information economy.
I felt so seen by that example. Glued to the chair is my default state from 9 to 5. Sometimes I look up and realize the sun has moved across the entire sky and I haven't moved my legs.
We've been there.
But here is the kicker, and this is what we need to really drill down on. The expert in the source, Emma, she explains that this isn't just about a lack of exercise. She calls it a state of physical stagnation. Now, technically speaking, what is the difference between simply not moving and stagnation?
It is a critical distinction, and I think it's where most of us get it wrong. When we think of lack of exercise, we think, oh, I didn't burn calories today. We view it as a missed opportunity, a 0 on the scoreboard for the day.
Right, it's a passive failure. I just didn't do something.
Exactly. But stagnation refers to what is happening actively inside the body during prolonged immobility. It's not a passive state. It's about active metabolic shutdown.
Metabolic shutdown. Okay, that sounds dramatic. Break that down.
It's physiological. When you sit for prolonged periods, and we are talking as little as 60 to 90 minutes without moving an enzyme called lipoprotein lipase, or LPL, essentially goes to sleep.
LPL.
And LPL is responsible for basically vacuuming up fats from the blood to be used for energy. When you are sedentary, LPL activity just drops by nearly 90%. It's a cliff.
90%. Wait, so you are saying that by sitting still, I am turning off the vacuum cleaner that cleans the fat out of my blood?
Precisely. That is a great analogy. Your metabolism slows to like a crawl. Your circulation becomes sluggish.
Yep.
Your body essentially enters a standby mode that is not efficient for clearing out toxins or processing sugars.
So it's not just about fat, it's about sugar too.
Oh, absolutely. Your insulin sensitivity drops, which means your body isn't handling glucose well. So that sandwich you had for lunch is hitting your system very differently than it would if you were moving around. It is not just that you aren't moving, it is that your internal systems are idling in a way that is actively harmful. You are creating a toxic environment inside your own body.
Wow. Okay, so that changes everything. It's not about not burning calories, it's about the system shutting down.
It's a system-wide shutdown.
Which leads us to the most startling fact from the source, and what I'm calling the gym myth. I think a lot of people, myself included, we operate on this transactional model of health. I sit all day, which is bad. So I go to the gym for an hour, which is good, and they cancel each other out, like balancing a checkbook. The source explicitly states that this is false.
It is a really hard pill to swallow for a lot of dedicated gym goers. We want to believe in the health bank account, withdrawal, deposit, balance.
Yeah, I put in my hour, I'm good for the day.
But physiology doesn't work like simple accounting. The source explains that the damage done by prolonged sitting, that shutdown of LPL we just talked about, the insulin resistance, it creates a deficit that an hour of intense cardio cannot fully reverse.
Wait. So if I run a 10K after work, after sitting all day, I'm still considered what? Still unhealthy in that respect.
There is a term for it in exercise physiology, which the source brings up, the active couch potato.
Okay, I don't want to be that.
Nobody does. But it's a real phenomenon. You are fit, you have cardiovascular endurance, your heart might be strong, but your metabolic health is still suffering from the 12 hours of stagnation.
So I can have the lungs of a marathon runner, but the blood sugar of someone who doesn't move.
In a way, yes. You cannot out-train a sedentary lifestyle if the sedentary part is 90% of your day. The gym stimulates muscle growth and heart health. Of course, that's not in question. But it doesn't undo the cellular stagnation of the previous 8 hours. They're two separate ledgers.
That is, honestly, it's terrifying. I mean, seriously. I feel like I go to the gym specifically to undo the damage of the day. If that's not working, what is the solution? Are we doomed to stand all day? So I'm not sure my knees can handle that either.
No, you aren't doomed. And standing for 8 hours straight has its own problems for sure. We just need a different strategy. And the source brings up a term that it made me laugh a little bit. Discercise.
Discercise. I immediately pictured myself in the middle of an open plan office doing jumping jacks or burpees next to the water cooler while everyone just stares at me.
Yeah, that's the image.
The source actually makes a joke about this, asking if we need to be doing calisthenics in the break room.
Thankfully, no. Please don't do burpees in the break room. The source material is very skeptical of that high-intensity approach in the office context. It's socially awkward, it's physically impractical. You don't want to be sweaty for your 3 p.m. meeting.
Definitely not.
The expert clarifies that desk size isn't about getting your heart rate up to 150 beats per minute. It isn't about working out. It is simply about breaking the pattern of stagnation.
So we are just trying to wake that enzyme back up. Is that the goal?
That's the entire goal. We are looking for something called non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT. It's all about just mitigating the damage.
Mitigate is the key word there, isn't it? We are not reversing it. We're not canceling it out. We are doing damage control throughout the day.
It's ongoing damage control.
So what are the actionable tips the source gives us? Because I'm not doing push-ups in a suit.
No, and the advice is surprisingly simple, which is why it is so effective. First, simple stretches at your desk, just extending the limbs, rotating the neck, rolling your ankles, things you can do without anyone even noticing.
Okay, subtle.
Very subtle. Second, investing in a standing desk. This is a big one.
I've heard mixed things about standing desks.
Yeah.
Some people say standing still is just as bad as sitting still. Is there truth to that?
There's a kernel of truth. Standing still, locked kneed for 8 hours straight can be hard on the joints in your back. But the real benefit of a standing desk is that it allows for dynamic movement. When you stand, you are constantly making micro shifts in your weight. You sway a little. You engage your core, your calves, your glutes to stay upright. You aren't stagnant in the same way you are in a bucket seat. You're active.
It's active resting versus passive resting.
That's a great way to put it. But the most accessible tip, the one I think everyone should adopt immediately, is what the source calls the timer rule.
The timer rule. Break that down for us.
It is so low-tech and so high impact. You set a timer on your phone or your computer for every hour, or 45 minutes if you are feeling ambitious. When it goes off, you simply stand up.
That's it.
That's it. You don't have to run a lap. You just stand up. You walk to the kitchen, you get a glass of water, you walk to the window and look outside for 30 seconds. You just break the physical shape of sitting.
That's it. Just the act of standing up resets the clock on stagnation.
It wakes up the LPL activity. The source explains that this simple act resets the body's internal clock regarding stagnation. It gets the blood moving, it wakes up the muscles in your legs and your glutes, and it tells the body, we are awake, we are moving, process the sugar properly.
It seems almost too easy to be effective. I feel like we want the solution to be hard because the problem feels so big.
And that's a mental trap. Complexity is the enemy of execution. If the advice was, do 50 squats every hour, no one would do it. They'd do it for a day, maybe 2, and then stop.
True.
But stand up and get water is doable. It's sustainable. And consider the payoff mentioned in the source. It's not just about your waistline or your blood sugar. The expert also highlights the mental benefits.
The brain fog aspect, that 2 p.m. slump.
Right, improved mental focus. When you sit, blood flow slows down everywhere, and that includes to the brain. If you are feeling foggy at 2:00 p.m., a jumping jack might be embarrassing, but a 2-minute walk to the other side of the office is going to make you a better worker than another cup of coffee will.
So you're literally oxygenating your processing unit.
You're oxygenating your brain. It's that simple. You're increasing blood flow, which carries oxygen and nutrients, and clearing out metabolic waste.
So the chair is the enemy, but we can fight back with a timer and a standing desk. I like that. It feels manageable. It's about frequency of movement, not just intensity.
Movement frequency is the metric to watch. It's about being a generally active human being rather than a sedentary statue who just happens to sprint for 30 minutes a day.
Okay, that whole section has completely reframed how I think about my workday.
It's a paradigm shift.
It really is. Now, let's move to the second pillar of our deep dive. We are shifting from the chair to the desk surface itself. The source describes this as the scene of the crime.
The crime being boredom snacking.
Exactly. The source gives this vivid example of the teacher, John, again, grading a dull essay. It's boring, it's repetitive. And suddenly, without even thinking, his hand is reaching for a bag of chips. I relate to this so much. I'm writing an email or maybe doing my taxes, something tedious, and suddenly I'm chewing, and I don't even remember opening the package. It's like a blackout. A snack blackout.
It's an automatic behavior, and this is where we get into the psychology of craving. The expert in the source makes a very, very important distinction between physiological hunger and psychological craving.
How do we tell them apart? Because in the moment, they both feel like I want to eat.
Well, physiological hunger is your body sending a clear signal, I need fuel, my energy stores are low. It usually comes on gradually, you feel it in your stomach, a gurgle, an emptiness. Almost any food sounds pretty good.
Okay, that makes sense.
Psychological craving in this context is the mind saying, I need relief. It hits suddenly like a lightning bolt, and it is usually for a specific texture or flavor, usually salty, sweet, or crunchy. You don't suddenly crave broccoli.
No, you never do. You crave chips or chocolate. Relief from what, though?
Relief from boredom, from stress, from the monotony of the task at hand. The source defines boredom snacking as a coping mechanism. And the key insight here, the thing to really grab onto, is that the snacker is often seeking stimulation, not food.
Stimulation, not satiety.
Exactly. Think about the act of eating chips. It's a sensory explosion. It's loud. Crunch. It's intensely flavorful. Salt. Fat. It requires jaw movement. It provides a micro hit of dopamine that breaks the soul-crushing boredom of the spreadsheet you are looking at.
So my brain is understimulated by the work, and it's seeking stimulation from the snack. It's a way to wake up the senses.
You've nailed it. It's not that you want the chips for their nutritional value. It's that you want to feel something other than the boredom of the report. The snack is a momentary escape.
That makes so much sense. So if the problem is a lack of stimulation, how do we hack this? The source gets really hands-on here.
Literally hands-on. The host in the source transcript asks, how do you stop that automatic reaching motion? The expert suggests you have to disrupt the habit loop. And the easiest way to do that is by keeping your hands busy.
The logic being, if your hands are occupied, you physically cannot snack.
Simple as that. And they mentioned some specific tools, right? Not just willpower, but actual physical objects.
Yes, which I loved. Stress balls, fidget spinners, even little puzzles, or a Rubik's Cube.
It sounds childish, doesn't it? Or like something for a restless kid in a classroom. But it works on a neurological level for adults too. If you are squeezing a stress ball while reading that dense report, your brain gets a clearer channel of sensory input proprioception and touch, which can satisfy that underlying urge for stimulation without the calories.
I love the idea of a fidget spinner being a legitimate health tool. It's diverting that restless energy. It's giving the toddler part of your brain something to play with so the adult part can focus on work.
That's exactly what it is. It's a pattern interrupt. But there's another layer to this solution that goes right back to our core theme: environment. The source talks about the concept of friction.
Friction. Tell me more about that.
Friction is one of my favorite concepts in behavioral economics, and the source just nails it. The strategy is curating the environment. And the rule is simple: make bad habits hard and good habits easy. You want to increase the friction, the number of steps, the amount of effort between you and the behavior you want to stop.
And the source gave a really concrete example of this involving almonds and chips.
Right. It's all about engineering the path of least resistance. If you want to eat healthier, you keep the almonds visible on the desk, maybe even in a nice clear bowl. You remove the lid, you make them the absolute easiest thing to grab.
Zero friction.
Zero friction. Conversely, you take the bag of chips and you put them in a cupboard. But not just any cupboard, a high one that requires you to get up from your chair, maybe get a step stool, or move other things out of the way to get to them.
You are making yourself work for the vice. You're adding steps.
Precisely. In that moment of mindless boredom, your brain is looking for the easiest dopamine hit. It is fundamentally lazy. If the chips are right there, you eat them. If the chips require 3 or 4 steps of effort, standing up, walking across the room, climbing, your lazy brain will do a quick cost-benefit analysis and say, not worth it, and you grab the almonds or the stress ball instead.
So you're outsmarting your own laziness.
You're using your laziness as a tool. You're weaponizing your own sloth against your gluttony.
That is a poetic way to put it.
I like.
You are adding a cost to the bad habit. Even a 20-second delay is often enough for the rational part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, to kick in and say, hey, wait a minute. I don't actually need those chips. I'm just bored.
That's the window of opportunity. That little bit of friction creates a pause. And in that pause, you can make a better choice.
That is brilliant. It's not about having iron willpower. It's about making it annoying to be unhealthy.
Yeah.
I can do annoying. I am very good at avoiding annoyance.
It works. It really does. It's one of the most effective behavioral change strategies there is.
Now, let's bridge this into our third segment. We've talked about what we eat when we're bored, but let's talk more broadly about what we are told to eat by the media. The source dives headfirst into the world of superfoods and supplements.
Oh, yes. The constant bombardment of this one weird fruit will change your life.
It feels like every week there's a new berry from the Amazon rainforest that is going to save my life, or a new green powder that costs $90 a tub. The source takes a Pretty hard and I think refreshing stance on this.
It does. The expert in the transcript just cuts right through the noise. She reveals the truth. Superfood is a marketing nomenclature, not a scientific classification.
Wait, let's pause on that phrase, marketing nomenclature. That sounds fancy, but what does it actually mean for us, shopping at the grocery store?
It means that nutritional scientists didn't sit down in a lab and create a category called superfoods. Marketers did. In an advertising agency. There is no regulatory definition for it. There's no scientific consensus.
So anyone can call anything a superfood?
Anyone can. They needed a word to sell exotic fruits and powders at a premium price. And the source uses a great comparative example here to illustrate the point. Kale versus humble spinach.
Poor spinach. It really did get left behind in the kale craze of the 2010s, didn't it?
It did. Everyone was drinking kale smoothies and eating kale chips. But the expert points out that while kale is incredibly nutritious, so is spinach, and so are carrots, and so are apples and oranges. The takeaway from the source is that diversity in your diet is far superior to obsessing over one specific magic berry.
It's the health halo effect, isn't it? We think because something is called a superfood, it will magically fix everything else.
Exactly. The source points out this flawed logic. If you eat a terrible diet, lots of processed sugar and fried food, but you throw some goji berries on top of your ice cream, you aren't healthy.
You're just eating expensive berries on top of junk.
Right. The source emphasizes that the matrix of the food matters. Eating a wide range of colorful vegetables provides a synergy of nutrients, fibers, and phytochemicals that you just can't get from focusing on the one trendy item of the month. You don't need the one specific acai berry that costs $20 a bag. You need plants, lots of different kinds of plants.
That is a relief for my wallet. What about when food isn't enough? Or we think it isn't. The source also discusses supplements. I feel like the general vibe these days is just take a pill. Yeah. Multivitamins, greens, powders, everything in a capsule. It seems so efficient.
And here, the source advises extreme caution regarding self-prescribing. The expert is very, very clear. There are real risks. And this is where the natural fallacy comes in. People think it's a vitamin, it's from nature, it can't possibly hurt me.
Right, if I take too much vitamin C, I
I key it out, right. Isn't that how it works? With water-soluble vitamins like C and the B vitamins, generally, yes, your body excretes the excess, though even those can cause issues like digestive upset in massive doses. But the source specifically highlights minerals like iron and magnesium and the fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K.
Fat-soluble?
Meaning they aren't easily excreted, they can build up in the body over time, they are stored in your fat tissues and your liver.
So toxicity is a real possibility. It's not just expensive urine.
Absolutely. The nuance here from the source is really important, though. The expert notes that vitamin D is often necessary, especially in winter or for people working those sedentary indoor jobs we talked about. We just don't see the sun enough.
Okay, so some are okay.
But for things like iron, you should only take them under consultation with a professional after a blood test shows a deficiency.
Because self-prescribing can lead to bodily imbalances.
Exactly. Or dangerous interactions with other medications you might be on. The source emphasizes that the body is an incredibly complex chemical factory. Throwing in high doses of concentrated minerals without a blood test is like a chemist just throwing random chemicals into a beaker. It might be fine, or it might cause a bad reaction.
And you wouldn't know what you did wrong.
Right. You might be taking iron when your levels are already fine, which can cause oxidative stress and damage your organs over time.
So the golden rule from the source on this.
The word they use is bioavailability. And the rule is that there is no substitute for getting nutrients from whole foods. A pill cannot replicate the complex matrix of fiber, water, and thousands of micronutrients found in an actual piece of broccoli. The body is designed to absorb nutrients better from food than from synthetic isolates.
No shortcuts. I feel like that is the recurring theme here. We want the pill, we want the superfood, we want the gym to fix the chair. But the answer is always, do the simple things consistently.
Consistency over intensity. It's boring, but it's true.
Okay, let's move to our final deep dive segment. This is where it gets interesting. We've stood up from our chairs, we've hidden the chips, we're eating our spinach. Now it is time to sleep. And the source gets a little weird here.
It does get into the weirder tips, but they are fascinating, and they're all backed by science.
We are talking about advanced sleep hygiene, and specifically sound. I think everyone knows about white noise, the fan in the corner, the static machine. But the source introduces us to the rainbow of noise, colored noise.
Yes, the underlying principle here is called auditory masking.
Auditory masking. What is that?
Well, think about why a dripping faucet keeps you awake at night. It isn't that it is loud, a passing truck is much louder. It is that it is sudden and distinct against the background of silence. It grabs your brain's attention.
Right, it's a change in the environment.
Exactly. Auditory masking is the technique of smoothing out the sonic environment so that those sudden noises, a car door slamming, a dog barking down the street, don't spike your brain into alertness. It raises the baseline of sound so the spikes aren't as severe.
Okay, so that's why fans work. It's just a constant sound. But the source distinguishes between white noise and other colors like brown noise and pink noise. What is the difference? Is it just a marketing thing again, like superfoods?
No, this is actual physics. White noise is equal intensity at all audible frequencies, from low to high. It sounds like static from an old TV. It's very high-pitched.
Yeah, that hiss.
And for many people, that high pitch is actually irritating. It can even increase cortisol, the stress hormone for some people. The source strongly recommends brown noise or pink noise instead. These prioritize the lower frequencies.
And how did they describe the sound of those?
They described brown noise as sounding like heavy rain or a powerful waterfall. It's a deeper rumbling sound, a whoosh. Because it lacks those high-pitched, hissy frequencies, it is much more natural and soothing for the human brain because it mimics sounds from nature.
I've actually tried brown noise since reading this source, and it really does sound like being inside a cabin during a storm. It's incredibly cozy. It feels, I don't know, thick.
That cozy feeling is your nervous system de-escalating. It's a signal of safety. And it drowns out the internal chatter in your head just as much as it drowns out the external noise. And that leads us to the second advanced sleep hack from the source. Proprioceptive input.
Which brings us to the famous weighted blanket.
A weighted blanket, yes.
I see these everywhere now. They are very trendy. But the source breaks down the science of why they work. It's not just because they are warm and heavy. So why does crushing myself with a 15-pound blanket help me sleep?
It is all about proprioceptive input. Proprioception is your body's awareness of where its limbs are in space. It's your body's internal GPS.
Yeah.
When you put a heavy blanket on, it provides something called deep pressure stimulation, or DPS. The source explains that this mimics the ancient, primal physical sensation of being hugged or held or swaddled as an infant.
It's a hug from a blanket.
Essentially. But biologically, this is a powerful signal of safety to the brain. It shifts the autonomic nervous system from fight or flight, the sympathetic state, to rest and digest, the parasympathetic state.
It's a chemical change.
It's a direct chemical change. It reduces cortisol and it increases serotonin and melatonin, the happy and sleepy hormones. It is forcing the body to relax on a neurological level.
It is incredibly soothing for the nervous system then. The source mentioned it was particularly good for people who toss and turn.
Yes, for the tossers and turners, the people who feel physically restless in bed. It pins you down, but in a comforting way. It creates a physical boundary that tells the brain, we are safe, we are secure, we are here, you can power down now, sleep now.
So, we have the sound of a waterfall and the feeling of a hug. That sounds like a recipe for a coma-level sleep.
A restorative sleep. And that is what we are so often missing in the modern world. Quality, not just quantity.
All right, restorative. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We have talked about the chair as an enemy to our metabolism, the psychology of boredom snacking, and the genius of using friction, the myth of superfoods, and the science of colored noise and weighted blankets. It feels like a lot of disparate pieces.
It does. It's a mosaic of small habits.
If you had to synthesize all this, to connect the dots for our listener who is maybe feeling a bit overwhelmed by all these different tweaks, what is the one main takeaway from the entire discussion?
I think the expert in the source said it best near the end of the transcript. She circles back to a core philosophy that underpins everything we've talked about. Health is about self-compassion, not perfection.
Self-compassion. That sounds soft, but tell me what it means in practice, based on what we've discussed.
Well, think about the tips we discussed. Standing up every hour isn't about being an Olympic athlete or punishing yourself for having a desk job. It's about being kind to your circulation. It's a small act of kindness. Using a fidget spinner instead of reaching for chips isn't about rigid discipline. It's about understanding your brain's basic need for stimulation and helping it out in a healthy way. Eating an apple instead of an acai super powder is about respecting simple, accessible nutrition. All of these are acts of self-knowledge and self-kindness, not punishment.
It's acknowledging that you are human. You will get bored. You will get tired. You will want the chips. The system is designed to make you want the chips.
Exactly. And instead of beating yourself up for these very human impulses, you design a system that catches you. It anticipates your weaknesses and supports you. That's self-compassion in action.
So this is the listener's journey. It's not about waking up tomorrow and trying to be a fitness model. It is about sustainable tweaks.
One tweak at a time.
Sustainable tweaks. And looking back at the vocabulary we learned, terms like scourge, mitigate, stagnation, coping mechanism, proprioceptive, bioavailability. These are tools for understanding why we feel the way we feel. Once you can name stagnation, you can fix it. Once you understand marketing nomenclature, you can ignore it and save your money.
That is powerful. Knowledge really is the tool here. We are dismantling the mysteries of our own bad habits. And once they're not mysterious, they're not so powerful.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave our listener with a final provocative thought, something that really struck me when reviewing all this material.
Let's hear it.
We spend so much energy fighting ourselves. We fight the urge to snack. We fight the urge to sit still. We fight our own brains to fall asleep. We treat our bodies and our minds like unruly employees that need to be disciplined and forced into submission.
And that's an exhausting, losing battle. You can't win against yourself.
Exactly. But the source proposes a different way. If you simply curated your environment, your desk, your cupboards, your soundscape, to work for you rather than against you, how much willpower, how much precious mental energy could you save for the things that actually matter? For your work, for your family, for your passions?
That is the question. Stop fighting your environment and start designing it. Make the healthy choice, the easy choice, the default choice.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been an absolute pleasure unpacking this stack with you. I feel like I need to go buy a standing desk right now.
A pleasure, as always. And maybe some almonds to put on top of it.
To our listener, thank you for lending us your ears. Go set that timer on your phone, hide the chips, and maybe find some brown noise on Spotify or YouTube tonight. Keep growing. We'll see you next time.